Welcome to Uncle's Channel. Thanks for watching today. And Contra Operation Galuga is officially out. And being a huge Contra fan, naturally I had to pick the game up and give it a play. And I'm happy to report, I really did enjoy my time with the game. However, the game definitely has its flaws or cons or takebacks that might leave some players a little bit disappointed as they're journeying through it. So today I'm basically going to break down all the pros of the game, all the cons of the game, and try to give you the best picture of what the overall game is like to see if it's worth your time and your investment to give a Contra Operation Galuga a playthrough. Now first off, you do have to acknowledge which version of the game you're playing. I am playing the PS5 version of the game, so I didn't notice any frame rate drops or any lagging issues or pretty much any performance issues at all as I was journeying through it. However, if you were playing Nintendo Switch version, that game is evidently plagued with frame rate drops, lagging throughout, and just tons of little bugs that you're going to encounter as you go. And evidently they got a patch coming for that game or that version of the game, but it's not out yet. And so if you're playing the Switch version, your experience is going to be quite different than the PS5 version. And if you have the ability to, I do recommend going for the PS5 or Xbox or Steam version, just simply because you won't have those performance issues that has pretty much plagued everyone who's picked up the Switch version. But like I said, I'm playing this on the PS5, so all of my takebacks here are going to be coming from the PS5 version of the game. Now Contra Operation Galuga is definitely a classic Contra game in the sense as a run and gun game. All the classic Contra weapons are here: the spread, the machine gun, the flamethrower, the homing missiles, the C weapon. I don't know if that stands for Contra. I always just sort of assumed it did, but it probably doesn't stand for that. But the C weapon is here as well, and it's pretty much a classic level format. A lot of it's based on the original Contra game, mostly a remake of that, but they do mix it up as far as different motorcycle levels and different extensions on some of the levels, and also just simply having brand new levels inside the game. But there are a ton of callbacks to the very first Contra, so if you're trying to do a one-to-one comparison between the original Contra game and this remake, it's not going to be the same, but it's going to feel very, very close in a lot of cases, which is a good thing because you wouldn't want a one-to-one remake because otherwise the game would be 25-30 minutes long and you'd be done with it. And so you definitely wanted some upgraded features, and they brought it to the game. But still, even the new levels, the classic Contra feel is there as far as having to play it multiple times, memorize enemy locations to make sure you don't die as you go. And I did play the game on hard mode, so if you're going to compare difficulty, I'd say hard mode is pretty close to what the NES normal mode would have been, or just simply the normal way to play Contra on the NES. So if you want a really classic Contra experience, I do recommend going to hard mode, just because you're going to have that difficulty that's going to harken back to the old days. Now, as you're going through the levels here, like I said, the weapons are pretty much all the same from the original game or from the classic Contra games, and you are able to pick up 2 weapons at a time and swap back and forth between the 2 of them with your trigger buttons. But if you pick up 2 of the same weapon, you actually get an upgraded version of that weapon. So let's say, for example, you have the homing missile and you pick up a second homing missile. Now all of your missiles are blue and they're a little bit more powerful as they explode on the enemies. And this applies to every weapon in the game. You can always get an upgraded version of it, and you only lose the upgraded version when you get hit and you take a little bit of damage on that. But also the weapons allow for what's called an overload, and if you hold down L2, whichever weapon you have selected now becomes a special power that's scattered across the arena. And you do lose the weapon when you do the overload, but the overloads are pretty darn cool and pretty darn powerful. So you can get little shields around you, or if you do the spread, little spread bubbles or little spread bullets will scatter all across the screen here. Homing missiles basically allow little missiles behind you to extra attack power. Every single weapon has its own unique ability, and the overload factor is a pretty unique and interesting part of the game. And I'm actually really glad they added it in there because it does allow for a little bit different strategy as you're journeying through the levels. Now, every time you have a game over, all the points that you've collected in that particular run are then transferred over to being a currency. You can spend that currency in a perk shop, and you can do all kinds of different upgrades to your character inside this shop. For example, you can get a automatic start with certain weapons. You can get an automatic upgrade every time you pick up a weapon. You get extra lives that you can have throughout your run. You can get a hover ability, a grappling ability. There's all kinds of stuff you can upgrade for individual characters or just simply across the board for all the characters. But the perk store is a pretty cool feature inside the game that allows you to essentially make your character a little bit more of your own, and also makes the game a little bit easier as you're going through it. But while we're talking about the individual perks for the individual characters, we have to also acknowledge the amazing character roster for the game, because not only do you get to play as Lance and Bill, the classic Contra characters, you have some new characters thrown into the mix. But my favorite ones to play as are the European version of Contra, which is the Probotectors, and you can play as the robots from those versions of the game inside Operation Galuga, and that's actually who me and my friend played as pretty much the entire experience here, because it's just so much more fun playing as the robots as you're journeying through it. I know some people would probably prefer the original Contra lineup, but I don't know, I just really enjoyed playing as the Probotectors, and so all the gameplay footage here, you're going to pretty much see exclusively the Probotectors. And you do only get to select your characters in the arcade mode and not the story mode of the game, and we're going to get to the story mode and the cons section here in just a minute. but the arcade mode and the perks and all of the upgrades, it makes for a fantastic Contra experience. But let's go ahead and journey over into the con part of the game, or what are some of the things that the game does wrong. Now let's go ahead and start off with the story mode. Now there are some people out there who are probably going to adore the story mode and really enjoy it, but to me, it just simply did not allow for a good flowing game. First off, the story mode is really nothing special as far as like the cutscenes or the graphics or anything like that. Most of it's done just simply with a picture and a little dialogue down at the bottom, and then another picture, some more dialogue. The storyline did not really like grip me into it, but at the same time, I don't really play a Contra game for the story anyway. And also, as you're playing through all these arcade stages or all these 2D action stages, you're going to be pausing constantly for like dialogue exchange, and you're sort of waiting for the dialogue to end to get back into the action. And if you're playing the game multiple times over, or if you die, you have to watch all the dialogue every single time, at least for the parts that are in the middle of the stage. The beginning parts you can skip over, but anything that's story driven in the middle of the stage, you have to watch every single time, and it really flows the overall feel of the game off. The story mode to me is not the best part of the game, and arcade is definitely going to be your way to go. I would have rather them taking some of the resources from the story mode and just simply transition that time into putting more levels inside the game, and I feel like that would have made a more exciting experience for the majority of the Contra fans out there. But even when you're doing the arcade mode, some of the awkward animations or the awkward transitions from the story mode sort of leak their way into the arcade mode, and there's some parts like when the characters like turn and like, you know, move around, like it just looks really, really bad. Like something you'd see in like a early 2000s game almost. Like they really could have worked harder making these animations smoother, or just simply taking the animations out altogether, and I think it would have made for a much better game. Like look here, like the probotectors are getting ready to turn on the train. Like that is a horrible animation in the game, and that could have easily been fixed or just simply taken out. And this is just like throughout the entire experience, like all these little awkwardness that you're going to notice, and you're going to be like, that didn't look so good. And then also like all these different angles that happen like during the story mode, like when your characters like sort of transition to a semi 3D look here for like a cool little action sequence. It's usually not a cool camera angle, and if anything, it's more disorienting and it throws you off a little bit. And I would just simply rather them continue with the normal run and gun action and not bother with these little camera changes or try to make it look cool or try to feel like the game is like really pushing the graphical barriers here, because it's not, and it just simply makes it look more and more dated. And they really should have avoided all of the cutscenes and just simply continued on with the classic Contra action. And while all of those points may seem like surface level issues, they actually can interfere with the gameplay a little bit as well, because like if you activate your overload in some of these awkward transition stages, it actually like sticks or freezes your upload on the screen, and you can't do your weapon upload anymore pretty much until you die off or you lose that weapon. And so like some of the little transitions they put in there, they do offer more of a hindrance than just simply being annoyances inside the game. And the final flaw of the game here is simply going to boil down to the price of the game itself. This is a $40 game that can be beaten in, like, if you do the normal mode, probably like an hour. If you do the hard mode, maybe like 4 or 5 hours, depending on your skill level. And yes, there are some challenges that you can go back and play through, and you can go through the story mode. And I'd say the entire gameplay experience, everything in the game, can probably be accomplished in under 10 hours. And for a $40 game, that's pretty short, especially since most of the content is somewhat repetitive between like the story mode and the arcade mode and the challenges. There's not going to be a lot of brand new content that you're exploring as you're going through it. But to sort of knock that point home a little bit, let's talk about like one of the greatest indie run-and-gun Contra-like shooters of all time, and that's going to be Cuphead. Cuphead was a handcrafted, hand-drawn, wonderful animation throughout the entire thing, amazing gameplay, tons of different options. I mean, like, Cuphead was a super in-depth, rich game that allowed for tons of replayability. When it first came out, $20, and it was a longer experience than Contra Operation Galuga, and it's a better game in every single way, and it was done by an independent, smaller studio. This is done by Konami, an enormous studio, and they are charging double the amount as you would pay for Cuphead. And I'm not just simply trying to say that games in general need to be cheaper. I'm just simply trying to draw a comparison of games that are very similar to this, that have done the concept better in a lot of ways, and you're basically paying for the Contra name when you're buying Operation Galuga. Yes, it's a fun game. Yes, it has a lot of cool upgrades in it, a lot of cool new features in it, but it's still not a $40 game. There are $20 games out there. There are $10 games out there that do this concept just as good, if not better, and probably in a more unique way as well. And so, like, I think Contra Operation Galuga is a fun game. It's worth playing, but it's not worth $40. This is a $20 game at max, and if you can get it on sale, it's even a better deal beyond that. But as far as like paying out $40, and especially paying for like the physical editions or like the deluxe editions, all that, I wouldn't venture into any of that. This is a on sale game for about $20, and I think you'll have a fantastic time with it. but it does continue on the Contra name. I just simply think Contra needs to sort of refocus itself instead of being a, I don't know, a AAA title or a AA title, if that's even a term. They just simply need to realize they're more of a niche game at this point, and they need to focus on that retro market, probably around the $20 price tag, and offer a product pretty similar to this one. But what do you all think about Contra Operation Galuga? Did you pick it up? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.